Hello and welcome to the Week 14 review of the PTW podcast, the NFL Week 14 review to be exact. And listen, another week of absolute shenanigans.
Oh, yeah.
Slate of games that some of it made sense, some of it absolutely didn't make sense. But things are gearing up real quick, man. We've got another 5 weeks of football left. 15, 16, 17, 18, 4 weeks of football left after this. And nothing is really clear or set in stone yet. Before we get to any of that, thanks for joining us here at the PTW podcast. My name is Amir. As with me always is Tossie the Football Greek. This is a friendly reminder to like and subscribe to the PTW podcast. So that you can check us out and get notified whenever we put out videos here on YouTube. We'll also have the stream available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and wherever else you are listening to your podcast. But Tassi, week 14 was absolute insanity. It wasn't Linsanity, but it was insanity.
Yeah, it was Fantasanity too.
It was, for sure.
I mean, people scored some crazy points.
Let's start with the craziest. Why not, man? Josh Allen and the Bills make their way over to SoFi Stadium in LA. I don't know if this is a scoreagami. I think it should be. I don't think I've ever seen a 44-42 score in the NFL.
Yeah.
But 12 touchdowns and Josh Allen just having a monster fantasy
Incredible game.
Yeah, man.
I had him on I have him on two of my teams. One league he scored 78. The other league he scored 74. So just an insane game. He had 6 touchdowns, 3 throwing, 3 rushing. Just a wild game. Rams just kept scoring. Puka Nacua also had an enormous game. He had 40 plus fantasy points, I want to say. He had like 12 receptions, 150 or 60 yards, and they had a rushing touchdown.
162 yards. Yeah. 12 receptions.
Kyron Williams, had 2 touchdowns. Matthew Stafford threw for a bunch of yards, and Cooper Kupp even had a pretty good game. Shakir had a big game for the Bills, and man, it was just a very crazy fantasy game. We wanted, as a Niners fan, I wanted the Rams to lose, but they ended up winning, and now it sets up this Thursday night game, which is going to be a huge game.
That's a big game. Yeah,
because, man. The Niners need to win, the Rams need to win, and I think whoever loses that is pretty much their season's done. So it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Going back to Josh Allen, I don't remember the last time I saw a stat where someone threw for 342 yards and threw for 3 touchdowns, but also ran for almost 100 yards, 82 yards. It would have been incredible if he had ran for 100 yards. And also scored 3 touchdowns. The leading rusher for the Bills in this game was Josh Allen, which is just, I mean, it's not fair. You know what I mean? Like, if you are not a Buffalo Bills fan, it's just not fair. You play this guy who, and I'm not wishing injury on him, but like he's always healthy. He's not injury prone at all. He's tough. He's accurate. And I think
player. He's what he is.
Absolutely. And this
game, he's the number 1 player in fantasy right now.
Right. And I think, this game might be the game where when MVP voting comes down to it and they're going between him and Saquon, like this might be the game that people point to and go, this is, and even in a loss, right? I think this might be the game they point to and go, look, man, not only is he throwing for 3 touchdowns, he's scoring for 3 touchdowns, and they're not like quarterback sneaks. Like, I mean, they might have been, but like he's still running for 80-yarders. 82-yard rushing though, still, regardless.
It was ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. So we'll see.
So what a game by him, but they still got the loss. I mean, it was a big deal because, as we'll talk about, Kansas City gets lucky again. And so it was a big deal that they lost because Kansas City did win. Now they're 2 games behind them. But 2 games behind them. But they do have a tiebreaker. Yes. With the head heads up win. So,
Correct. The
we'll
Chiefs
see how that
only
plays
loss
out.
of
But
this the Chiefs only loss of the season against the Buffalo Bills. Let's talk
yeah,
about the Chiefs. So that Sunday night game, Chargers Chiefs. I would have bet money, and I'm glad I didn't, that the Chargers were going to win this game,
yeah, me
just because
too.
the Chiefs were like limping into this game.
Yeah,
A couple lucky breaks here and there, some games that they probably shouldn't have won, but nonetheless they did. And you know, this is something, and I'm going to talk about this with the Lions too, man. At the end of the day, the most important stat, we could point to stats all day and say that Mahomes is not the quarterback he used to be, and they don't necessarily have like a true number one receiver, and Kelsey's like a shell of himself. What matters is that they're winning. I mean, at the
yeah,
end of the day, you could sit here and say the refs are helping them out here and there. Sure, maybe like for a play or two, they're getting some calls going their way, but
mm-hmm,
they're getting W's, and like that that's
yeah,
just that to me is the more impressive stat than anything. It's like, okay, Mahomes had a bad game, fine. Kelsey's
yeah.
not irrelevant, fine. They're still winning,
The
you know.
third string kicker is going to make all the kicks, and he's going to doink one in
Right. I mean,
for the
listen, the
game
when
winner.
the football gods wanted to go your way, the football gods wanted to go your
Seriously,
way. I mean,
that's
come
the
on.
charm. You get
But yeah,
Mahomes
I mean,
magic, bro.
but
Just
yeah, the
hits him.
Chargers, we talked about it at the beginning of the season on this podcast, that the Chargers were going to make some noise with Harbaugh as quarterback, and I think like that's coming to fruition. They're doing their thing. They're playing, hard-nosed football, and
They are.
running. And although granted in this game, rushing wise, not a huge game for them.
Yeah,
Um,
they've had
but
trouble rushing the ball since J.K. Dobbins got hurt. So I
yeah,
know they got Gus Edwards, and he's been all right. They got Vidal. He's a rookie, and he hasn't really shown out too much. So they missed J.K. Dobbins. I don't know how long he's going to be out. I think he went on IR, so I think they're going to have him for the rest of the regular season here. So
yeah,
that's a big loss for them, especially for what Harbaugh
huge.
wants to do in the run game. Justin Herbert, he doesn't want Justin Herbert back there throwing it like 40 times. He wants him throwing it like maybe 20 to 30 times, and then, rushing the ball 25 to 30 times. So,
Yeah.
it's just tough for them not to be able to do that now. And they're just not as efficient on the ground with their yards per carry, especially Gus Edwards. He's kind of like a lumberer. He gets like 2 to 3 yards kind of thing. Now and then he'll break a little bit longer run, but he's been like that for the last couple of years. Even in Baltimore, he was kind of like that. So
Yeah.
J.K. Dobbins getting hurt was a big deal for them. So, but we'll see. I think they're still in good position to make the playoffs. So we'll see how things play out for the rest of the season for them.
I think so. I think for sure they're going to be one of the wild card teams. I think the other two are a little murky, right? Between the
Yeah,
Broncos. And
Baltimore.
I think Baltimore makes it too. I mean, we'll see what happens, but yeah, and then the teams that are still in the hunt, like the Colts are kind of sniffing
Dolphins.
it, the Dolphins are kind of sniffing it. I mean, I don't know. We'll talk about them in a little
Yeah,
bit, but yeah, let's I mean, let's move on here, and let's talk about another team that keeps getting W's, man. As far as having the same record, it's amazing to me that excuse me, it's amazing to me that we have two teams in the NFL that are 12-1. They are in
yeah.
different conferences, and by all accounts, this is the Super Bowl favorite match. I know you have some thoughts on this team. The
Hmm.
Packers and the Lions Thursday night, 34-31.
Yeah,
Lions get the sweep over the Packers this season. They win both games. This one closer than their previous encounter. They win by a field goal. Packers get
yeah.
the W. I'm sorry, the Lions
So
get the
it's Lions.
W.
Yeah,
Yeah, and let's talk about this, man. I mean, you've been itching to
yeah.
talk about this for a while, so let's get it off your chest.
Dan Campbell is just I know that he likes to gamble, he likes to go for it on fourth down, but he basically almost cost them the game in this game. He basically let the Packers in it. He went for it early, like at his own like 30, with a 4th and 1 early in the game, got the Packers back in the game, give him a short field. And then at the end of the game, he almost like gave up the game. Like all they had to do was kick a field goal. It was like 20 seconds left. It's like kick the field goal, bro. He said you go for it. Jared Goff like gets stepped on, takes a knee. If he was touched at that point, it's down. He's down. It's turnover on downs, and Packers basically have a chance 20 seconds to go down and score the game-winning field goal. So it's like, dude, I know you got it. So it doesn't matter, but still, it was almost a disaster. And it was a disaster that it didn't have to even have to come to that. You could have easily won without your like, I'm going to gamble. I'm going to go on for on fourth down. I'm going to do this and do that when you don't really need to. It's not really smart football. Like they lost last year to the Niners because they went for it on fourth down. They didn't get it. And they didn't go for it on fourth down and goal. And they decided to kick field goal at the end of the first half. So like a couple of things that he's like going doing it. Like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm doing it. And then when it really comes down to it, like he's made these decisions that have hurt them in the end and should have hurt them against the Packers on Thursday.
Yeah, Dan Campbell is one of those coaches where like over time he's just gonna learn as far as like life experience, coaching experience of like what the smarter thing to do is. He's gotten as far as he's gotten by being himself, by being a punch you in the mouth type of coach that is gonna just we're gonna take every opportunity that's afforded to us. We're right. What did he say when he had his like welcoming press conference? Like we're gonna hit dudes in the kneecaps or something. We're gonna bite
We're gonna
kneecaps
bite
off or
their
something.
kneecaps
We're
off.
gonna bite their kneecaps off, right? And like everyone mocked him for saying that. And the truth of the matter is like that's in essence been like the motto of the Dan Campbell Detroit Lions that has now gotten them to this position where they are. I never envisioned in my lifetime I would see the Detroit Lions as a 12-1 team, right?
Yeah.
That could theoretically finish the season 16-1. So this is just his coaching style, and like they got lucky, right, with that play. Jared Goff was smart enough to do what he did and to get them settled for the field
Get the
goal, but
handoff.
get the hand. But like at the end of the day, like that's just who he is, and I think that's going to be like a life experience. More and more, eventually one of those decisions, like the Niners game, is going to bite him, right?
Yeah.
Enough where he's going to realize, hey man, I probably shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I should like be a little bit more conservative here. I don't need to be hardcore aggressive all the time.
It's like, dude, you make that field goal. There's probably like 15 seconds left. Like, what are they going to do with that time? Like, they have time for one play. It's like you kick it in the end zone. They get up to 30. They get time for one play. If you just got to play defense on one play, and the game's over. So it's like instead, you almost like lose the game because you decided to do it. So I don't know. To me, it just seems a little over the top. But what do you do, man? He didn't get burned by it this time, so he's probably going to do it in the next game. So so we'll see. And I think they're playing Buffalo this week, right? So
I think so. Yeah,
game to watch.
That's going to be a fun game, especially after that shootout with the Rams. We'll see. We'll see what happens there, man.
Another shootout coming.
Another shootout is definitely coming.
Yeah.
Staying in the NFC North, we thought that this team might have a little bit of a spark because they were going to get a new head coach going into Levi's. That did not happen. The San Francisco 49ers beat the Chicago Bears 38-13 at Levi's, getting their mojo back. I watched a bit of the game here and there. The Niners looked like they never relinquished control of this game from the start. At one point, they were up like 21-0, I believe. And it was
24-0.
24-0. There you go. And it was just a shellacking from the Niners that we haven't seen from them in a while this season.
It was like the first time I think since they played the Patriots when they actually had control of the game. And that was like back in like week 4 or 5, it was just like so long ago. And then, and week 1 was the last time they kind of looked this dominant, right, against the Jets. And so like they get the opening possession, they go drive down. They're like, they're getting these big chunk plays all game. Isaac Guerrero had a huge game. George Kittle had a huge game. Juwan Jennings had a huge game. Devo's still kind of like MIA. They're still trying to give him this sweep play and these things outside, and it just doesn't work anymore. It hasn't worked for like a year.
He's missing Mike McDaniel, man. Mike McDaniel knew how to use him. I'm telling you.
Yeah. No, I mean they're not getting him in the space, and even when he does have space, it seems like he's not making that right cut or the right decision, like who to follow, the lead blocker type of thing. So, hopefully Debo like figures it out. But yeah, it's been kind of hard to watch him kind of like decline so much. And I'm even thinking about if they're going to even keep him on the team next year moving forward, especially now that they have like Juwan Jennings who's broken out, and they're probably going to have to give him a little bit more money because they just signed him to an extra year, so he's under contract. But I don't know, he's like become their number one receiver. And
Yeah.
Brandon Ayuk's probably not going to be ready next year, with the
Mm-mm.
knee injury. He's probably going to take some time to get back. So it's going to be Juwan Jennings, like for the foreseeable future here for the Niners as their number one receiver. So, if they're going to keep Debo, like they got to figure out like how they're going to be able to pay him and afford to pay him and Ayuk, who's going to not be playing, and Jennings at the same time. And I almost feel like they wasted a first round pick on Ricky Pearsall. I'm like, they didn't even need him at this point.
Mm.
Like, he hasn't been playing well. He had a ball that was an easily catchable ball. He just decided to stop and like he was going to jump or like try to catch it, but he decided not to do anything. And he stopped and he kind of like fell over and the ball went over his head. It would have been like a 60-yard touchdown. It was just the worst thing I've seen the whole day. But everything else is great. Their defense played great. Their offense played great. Moody made his kicks. So it was a good day at the office for the 49ers. And it was a game they must win game. Like if they lost
Yeah.
this game, their season was done. And that's going to be moving forward, like we were saying, like previewing the Rams game. The Rams coming off a huge win against the
Yep.
Bills.
Yep.
And, it's like both these teams absolutely have to win on Thursday night. So it should be a really good game. I'm going to be going to the game. I got my buddy coming up from LA.
Oh,
He's a
nice.
Rams fan. We're going to be
Mhm.
going at it. So it should be fun.
What
Hopefully Niners can get it done and keep it
in
rolling because
in watching this Niners Bears game, I'm going to switch it to the Bears real quick. What are your thoughts? What did you see from the Bears today? Because the rumor is that of all the head coaching positions that are going to be open this offseason, this arguably, and I say arguably because I don't necessarily agree that this is the most attractive, but a lot of people are pointing to this one as the most attractive only because of the roster and Caleb and
yeah.
or the Caleb's potential and that kind of stuff. Did you see anything in this game that maybe pointed to like, yeah, I could see that this team is just missing like a few pieces and some leadership to actually be like decent, or was it just like it was so one sided that you didn't even see anything like that today?
It's interesting. I mean, Caleb Williams, I think he's got the arm talent. He's mobile. He can, run and pick up yards, but he's still having trouble kind of with reading the defenses. He held on the ball a lot. I think the Niners had like their season high in sacks. They had 7, I want to say.
Damn. Yep.
So
Okay.
and it was a lot of times it was covered sacks. He was holding the ball way too long. He was standing in the pocket way too long, and it wasn't like they were getting like pressure like right away. Most of the sacks came after like 3, 4, 5 seconds. Where it was like literally he's holding it and he's like looking. He's trying to step up in the pocket, and then I think Gross Matos had a couple, and he had a really good game, and he was in the backfield pretty much all game, but he was waiting too long to make a decision on what to do, and a lot of those I think were basically covered sacks, essentially.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we'll
but
see.
they got talent. They got
They
DJ
got
Moore, they
talent.
got Keenan Allen.
They got
DeAndre
talent
Swift's
and
a good
like
back. So
of all the teams, I mean, let's say for example, the Jets are going to have an opening. The Saints are going to have an opening. The Giants
yeah,
may or may not have an opening. I don't know what's going to happen there.
yeah,
The Panthers most likely. The Raiders most likely. The Jaguars most likely. Excuse me.
yeah.
The
Cowboys,
Bears and the Cowboys.
Raiders, Cowboys.
Yeah, Raiders and Cowboys. Like of all of
Yeah,
those teams, like which one is the most attractive for a I don't know at the next hot head coach to take? I mean, for
yeah.
me, like I look at those teams and I
Raiders.
would gravitate. The Raiders need a quarterback. The
Yeah,
Raiders
well,
need a
I think they're
quarterback.
gonna have the top draft. They're gonna get the number 1 draft pick. I want to say
They
so.
need a receiver. They need a quarterback.
Sanders.
They lost Devontae Adams. That sure
Yeah.
they got Brock Bowers, but
Well,
they're gonna
Jacoby Myers is a pretty good receiver. Like he's pretty good number one receiver, and Brock Bowers is like
Brock
he's
Bowers is
like
awesome.
breaking
He's
rookie
killing it.
records for tight
Yeah,
ends.
he's
Like
killing it. He's
he's
killing it.
killing it, and he like broke the record for reception for a rookie tight end in like week what are we like 14? He still
14.
has like 4 more weeks to go. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like he's gonna eviscerate that record, which is
Yeah.
gonna be crazy. So I do think they have some pieces to play with. I mean, they don't have a good running back, and they don't have a quarterback. So like those are the two areas they're gonna have to
But
look
if
at in
you're
the draft.
but do you want to
Maybe for
be
you.
in a division with Mahomes twice a year? I
Yeah,
don't.
that's
You
gonna be
know,
tough. It's gonna
that's a
be
tough
tough. But he's getting
situation.
old, man. Like I feel like Mahomes, like there's only so long he can kind of do this. Like I think he's kind of like he's not the
Bro,
quarterback he was
Tom Brady
a
did it
couple
for
years
20
ago.
years. And I'm not saying
But
Patrick
he's not
Mahomes is
Tom
Tom
Brady,
Brady.
bro. He's not Tom
I'm not
Brady.
saying he is, but what I am saying is that even in Tom Brady's off years, they were still getting it done. Keep in mind,
Yeah,
Tom Brady was a quarterback for the New England Patriots for 20 years, and they
yeah,
went to the Super Bowl 6 times. Sorry, seven,
yeah.
8 times. 8 times.
Eight
They
times.
lost
Yeah,
twice, and they won
they
six.
lost.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's not like they were killing it every single year. I mean, still 8 out of 20. I mean, it's still a really good goddamn ratio, right?
yeah. He almost
So
went to half the Super Bowls in that time. Half the
seriously,
like
half of
half
his
the
years
time.
playing in the Patriots, he went to the goddamn Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, and then how many
So
NFC or AFC championship games and
he went
AFC
to a
and
lot of
playoffs did
AFC
he go?
championship games because
Yeah,
they lost a few. They lost one to
to
the Colts. They lost one
the
to
Denver.
Denver. They lost two to
Yeah.
Denver, didn't they, or something like that? I
Mm-hmm.
forgot. Nonetheless, yeah, maybe the Raiders.
Ravens.
For me, I look at the Ravens aren't gonna. Well, they lost to the Ravens for sure, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean the Cowboys to me are an attractive team. I
Cowboys
think,
too.
yeah, Cowboys
Belichick
are an
maybe,
attractive team.
but I don't
I
know if he
mean,
can get around
this
Jones.
is a good segue, but like if the Dolphins were to, I don't know, crap the bed in the next 4 games and completely lose out and just not even end the season on a winning record. We'll talk about the Dolphins and Jets now. Uh, I I wouldn't be surprised, and I actually personally would I'd be okay with if Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer, the GM, got let go only because they mortgaged everything on this season and it just has not worked out. At
Yeah,
least so far. Granted, they got to win and they're in the playoff hunt, quote unquote. They need a lot of things to go in their way. First
yeah,
off, they need
they
to
do.
win out. They need to beat the Texans. They need to beat the Niners. They need to beat the Browns, and they need to beat the Jets again. Okay, and 2 of those games are on the road. So that's number one. Number two, they need either the Broncos to lose some games, the Colts to lose some games, maybe the Ravens to lose some games. Like there's a lot of things that need to happen to
Yeah,
salvage the season and the season at a 10-7 winning record and make it into the playoffs for a third year in a row. But I would go on record and say that if the Dolphins do somehow choose to move on from Mike McDaniel, that to me becomes the most enticing head coaching position that's available because you
yeah,
are getting into a situation where and by the way, I don't care about this stat. I really don't because at the end of the day, I just want wins. I want to do what the Kansas City Chiefs are doing. I want to do what the Detroit Lions are doing. I want to win games. I want to do what the
yeah,
Eagles are doing. I want to win games. I don't care that Tua is on track to be the most accurate passer in the NFL this season. I don't care that he's on track to have the highest completion percentage rating in the NFL this season. I don't care about those stats because those stats uh, don't help my defense have help Aaron Rodgers have the best game that he's had since 2021. Um, Aaron Rodgers threw for 339 yards
yeah.
today
Garrett Wilson
and
was
one
open
touchdown.
all game.
Yeah,
Garrett Wilson, I saw.
who was covering Garrett Wilson? Jalen Ramsey
Yeah,
had a
he's getting
very
cooked.
bad had got a cook that the Jets had 200+ yard receivers in this game, Devontae Adams and Garrett
Yep.
Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Running game, not much there.
Yeah, Braylon
Aaron,
Allen
Rod-
and
Aaron
Zay
Rodgers was
Davis.
cooking, but thank God, so was Tua. Tua, 331 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dolphins' run game is non-existent. Devon Achane runs for 24 yards. But Tyreek has
It's
115
too
yards and
small.
a touchdown finally. I agree.
Yeah, he had a big game.
Uh, Waddle 1 yard away from having a 100-yard game, right? So Dolphins also almost had 200-yard receivers as well. And then Jonnu Smith, irrelevant, didn't even have a single catch in the regulation, and then catches 3 receptions, 44 yards in the game-winning touchdown
Yeah.
in
They're
overtime.
like, oh wait, this
Oh
guy's been
wait,
awesome for the past
we
like
have
4 weeks, right?
we have Jonnu, you
Why
know?
don't we use him?
So, yeah. So
It's
for
crazy.
me, as a Dolphins fan, am I happy they won? Yeah, it's against the Jets. I'm happy that they beat the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy that they won a game that they should have won, right? And
Yeah.
so it's one of those things like, talk to me if they beat Houston next week. Talk to me if they
Yeah.
go into Houston and beat the Texans next week. Then maybe I'll get excited. Maybe I'll get
I
excited about the idea of going to Cleveland and beating Cleveland and then finishing the season at MetLife. Wait, are they ending the season on back to back to back? No, because they got the Niners game, right. So
Yeah,
they
they got
got
the Niners
so
at home.
they've got 3 road games left and they've got 1 home game. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
tough stretch too, right? They've got Houston at Houston, Cleveland at Cleveland, Jets at MetLife, and then they've got the Niners at home, not in that
Yeah,
order. So it's a tall task, but
it
a lot of
is.
things got to go their way. But
Yeah.
right now, I'm not excited. Like right now, I'm like, okay, cool, they won a game, great. I barely watched it. I think I watched like half of it, and then I turned it off because I was like, who cares? And then I got on Twitter and found out that they were in overtime. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then like 2 tweets later, I saw that they had won the game. So that's exciting for me as a Dolphins fan. Cool, we beat the Jets. Great. The Jets are hot garbage. Like we predicted they would be at
So
I
bad.
predicted they would be at the beginning of the
You
season.
did,
Um,
but Aaron
yeah, and
Rodgers went
again,
off.
well, because the Dolphins defense can't stop a cold. They're bad.
Yeah.
They're
They're
not
gonna have
great,
trouble
and
against the Texans and the
they're gonna have
Niners.
trouble against the Niners, the Texans, even
The Browns.
Jameis
Mm-hmm.
Winston's gonna ball against them, and with Nick
Yeah.
Chubb
Yeah.
too, right? So, I mean, thankfully their
Yeah.
run defense is decent, so I'm not necessarily worried about Nick Chubb, but any quarterback that is mobile, aka CJ Stroud, Brock Purdy, Jameis Winston, they're gonna have issues. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, man, I don't have hope, but we can talk about this next week if
Yeah, I know that's
they
true.
beat the Texans, right?
Because the Niners, and if the Niners win and the Dolphins win, they'll be both be 7-7, like we said a couple weeks ago,
Yep.
and then they'll be heads up to see like pretty much, the season's on the line for both teams at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but they got to get through this week first to even make that a possibility. So we'll
Absolutely.
see how that goes. Watching that Dolphins game, I was excited to see Tyreek, finally kind of like get some play.
Mm-hmm.
He had a really good game, and
Yeah.
Tua's a good quarterback, man. He does his thing when
Listen,
he's in there. He's so much better than the backups, and
listen.
he makes that offense
Uh,
go. So
ever since he's come back from IR and having his concussion this season, he's been incredible. And
yeah,
even in the Green Bay game, in the Arizona loss, he played phenomenal. In the Buffalo loss, he played phenomenal. And in the Green Bay game, he wasn't phenomenal, but he wasn't the reason they lost.
yeah,
And he's played really well since they've come back.
yeah,
And it's at least put my mind at ease as a fan to be like, okay, he's not our problem. He's not the problem anymore. Now the problem is that our
yeah,
defense can't stop anything.
yeah,
We might need a new DC. If Mike McDaniel is still coach next year, I am begging and pleading for Robert Saleh to come be our
yeah.
DC.
I feel like so are
Um,
we. I
because
think a lot of people.
listen, man, Miami had Vic Fangio last year and it didn't work. And look what's happening
Yeah,
with Vic Fangio in Philadelphia right now, right? So
yeah.
the right pieces need to be there,
Just got to
and
have the right
maybe
pieces
Saleh's
with the
that
right
guy.
coaches.
Yeah, maybe Saleh's that
Yeah.
guy if he decides to come to Miami.
Hey,
No,
Miami's a pretty nice place.
hey, no income taxes. That's all I'm saying. You go to Santa Clara, they're gonna tax the hell out of you. Just saying.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's talk about a
Speaking
few
from
more of these games.
experience.
Let's talk about a few more of these games seriously. Before we wrap this up here. Let's talk about Vikings and Falcons. Sam Darnold, no, he's not even
Big game.
sniffing. He's not even sniffing the MVP conversation.
No.
But when you throw
Yeah.
for 5 touchdowns, 347 yards, and the opposing quarterback on the other side, and people are asking for him to be
Cousins.
benched
Yep.
for Michael Penix Jr.
We were saying this is
Uh,
week 1.
we were, man. We were saying, and
He
Kirk
had
Cousins,
one good game, and then it
he
was
had
like, oh,
he had a
he had 2
stretch.
good
He had a
games. Yeah.
stretch. No, he had a good like weeks 2 through like 6, I want to say Cousins was
Yeah.
actually playing really
If that.
well. And then
Yeah.
it's kind of fallen apart since then. But I
He's been
mean,
terrible.
Vikings are rolling,
Absolutely.
man. Maybe are they like the quiet, like the I don't know. Everyone's talking
Yeah, they
about the
could win that. They
Lions.
could still win the
Everyone's talking about the
NFC.
Packers. Everyone's talking about,
Yeah.
whatever, and the Rams or whoever. And like these Vikings are sneaky, man.
Yeah.
I
They
mean,
got a good defense,
they're scoring
and
21
they're putting
points
up
in the
points.
fourth quarter, bro.
Yeah.
The game at hand. They're just like, all right, we're gonna run away with this
Keep
game
it
in the
going.
fourth.
And Justin Jefferson finally went off, and Jordan Addison went off. So another their 2 receivers are having huge fantasy games.
130 plus yards receiving per receiver. Jordan
Yeah,
Addison,
and
2
3
touchdowns.
touchdowns for
Justin
Addison.
Jefferson for 2. Oh my
2.
goodness.
Yeah. Yeah,
Damn.
enormous game. The 2 of those guys, and Aaron Jones is still a good running back. So yeah, the Vikings definitely have a lot of things working for them, and I do think that there's a chance that either them or Philadelphia is going to take the
A 1 seed?
NFC away from Detroit. So
That's interesting. Yeah, the
because to
final
me,
4
I still
games.
don't think Detroit is like they barely beat the Packers. They probably shouldn't have beat the Packers, but again, like the Packers had the touchdown on, and then they called it back on some ridiculous They called Christian Watson for offensive pass interference, and that was not offensive pass interference. He just like kind of like ran into the guys that were running the route. He didn't like block him. He just kind of like he was running the in route, and they kind of collided. Josh Jacobs got open, scored the touchdown, but then they called it back, and then they settled for the field goal just to tie it. So instead of being up 4, Detroit would have had to score a touchdown there instead of just kick a game-winning field goal. So that was a huge call, and Detroit got bailed out there, and then they also got lucky on the 4th down call. Like that was dumb. They shouldn't have done that. So
Yeah,
I
but it goes
honestly,
back
I
to
go
we'll
ahead.
see. We'll see. No, go ahead. I was just gonna say, like, again, for me, like the stat that matters is the W at the end, man. Like
Yeah, it's true.
that's the stat that matters to me.
It's true.
We're gonna go back to the Vikings for a second. Like this let's play hypothetical here.
Yeah.
The last 4 games of their schedule, they've got Bears at home Monday night,
Yeah, that's a
winnable
win.
game.
Yeah, they got
They're
Seahawks.
traveling to Seattle. That's a hard game, I
It's
think,
a hard game
because
because it's in
Seattle.
Seattle, but they should beat them. Seattle, like they play well against Arizona, but every other team, like they're barely winning. I feel like Seattle's going to lose that game, and then
Okay. Then they've
they've
got
got
Green Bay at home,
yeah, they're going to win that
and
game too
they finish at
with
Detroit.
Detroit, and that will be
So
for
so
the
that
division right
game
there.
might be for not just
hmm
for the division. That game might be for the 1
For
seed.
yeah, for the 1 seed.
That
I'm
game
telling you that
might.
Minnesota's going to finish with 2 losses. They're going to win out in my mind, and they're going to catch Detroit on that last week. I would say
That is
that's my prediction.
that would be very interesting if that Week 18 game against Detroit at Detroit is not only for the division, but it's also for the 1. That would be
hmm
very, very
We got to
cool.
see what happens with Philly though too, because I don't know if it's a 3-way
Yeah,
tie. Who's gonna break, like how that tiebreaker break?
I think it's
Go.
based on strength of conference and strength of division, right? So like,
Yeah,
yeah. So
if it's strength of
a strength of
division, then
schedule, If it's strength of division, it's 100% the whoever wins the
the
North.
North. Yeah.
Yeah, because
So,
the NFC East is they're kind of
well, yeah, no. I
they're
mean, they've got the Commanders, but they got the Giants, who are a terrible team,
yep.
and the Cowboys, who are like middle of the road.
We'll see what
Those
the
are probably
Cowboys. Let's talk about this Cowboys game, man. Cowboys at Bengals, a
tomorrow,
game that did not get flexed
Monday night.
because the animators already did all their animation for the Simpsons thing, so they couldn't flex
Yeah,
it out.
yeah.
Um,
I don't
that's the
think they
truth,
flex Monday night games, bro.
dude. they might
They should.
I think they do
They won't.
now. I think they do now. It's a Cowboys game. They're not gonna flex them out. They're gonna get so many, the ratings are gonna be
No.
through the roof. So
Yeah,
it's
and
all
they
good.
got Burrow and Chase and those guys. So
Yeah,
honestly, I think Cincinnati's going to win this game. I know that this Dallas team's been playing well, especially on defense. But Cincinnati's a way better team than their record. I think they're 4-8 right now. They are probably the best 4-8 team, um, or are they 5-8? Like
they are
whatever
four and
they
eight.
are,
They
four and eight.
are
Yeah. So
the best 4-8 team, dude. I would argue
yeah,
that they're better than most like 8-4 teams right now.
yeah,
They're just not
just
closing. They
don't
just can't
close.
close. They
They
can't
lost
close.
2 games to Baltimore that they should have won, or could have
Mm,
won. They could have won the Kansas City game. It's just they've lost some tight, like, barn burner games. Like, their defense has to play better. But I think against the Cowboys, I mean, the Cowboys don't have a lot on offense right now with Cooper Rush,
mhm.
and CeeDee Lamb really isn't having that great of a season. And you know, I know that Dowdle stepped up as their number one running back, but I mean, he's like an average running back. He's not like anything special. So
Yeah.
I think Cincinnati should have a better defensive game, and their offense is it's clicking, man, with Chase and
Mhm.
Higgins and Chase Brown, those guys like Joe Burrow. He was the number one player in fantasy up until Josh Allen just passed him, but we'll see what happens. Burrow can retake that crown if he has a huge game again. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens tomorrow night. But
You're
I think
picking
Cincinnati's going to win the game. Yeah.
you're picking the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm gonna go the other way only because the Bengals, have just they've been in these massive shootouts and have just it's not their year. It
Yeah.
hasn't been their year. They've lost so many games that they should have won. This might be another one of those should have won games that something will go uh,
Awry.
awry. Something will go in the Cowboys' favor, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm picking the Cowboys. And
Okay.
then and
Okay.
then real quick, with Thursday, we already talked about it, but Rams and Niners, it's pretty obvious you're picking the Niners. Yeah.
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 I am only because the Niners. I mean, they should have beat the Rams earlier in the season, and they just have ownage over them. They've beaten them like 10 of 11 times, but or no, 10 of 12 times, and basically the 2 times that they lost to them was basically this season when they blew that 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, and the season they played in the NFC Championship game when the Rams actually won. I think it was a 21 when they won the Super Bowl. Niners blew also a 10-point fourth quarter lead.
Yeah.
Just Kowalski
I
Tart dropped the
I
interception.
think if there's anything going in your favor right now is that okay, well, granted, both teams played home games this week, so they're
Yeah,
good there. Plus the travel from LA to San Francisco is non-existent. It's nothing. But the Rams just played an absolute barn burner against the Bills. They're probably
yeah,
wiped out from all of just the back and forth. Meanwhile, the Niners basically cakewalked all over the
yeah.
Chicago
They
Bears.
just destroyed Chicago. Yeah,
So that I think works in the Niners' favor, but
I think it
simultaneously
does too.
playing devil's advocate, and you're not going to like me for this, but I'm going to do it anyways. The Niners are playing a team that just beat a team that walloped the Niners. So
Yeah,
there's that too, right? Like the Rams were
yeah,
able to answer the call of the Bills, the Niners were not.
dude.
So are the
That
Rams going to
Bills
be able to
game
do that same? That Bills game was a Bills game, bro.
in the
That's what you
snow.
did.
Come on,
Stop.
that doesn't
Stop
even.
it.
It's just like
Stop it.
so.
Stop. Stop.
You
Stop.
can't
Stop.
like.
Stop. Stop.
I don't know.
Stop.
The Rams, they
Stop.
get them at home on the
Stop.
in the dome.
Just
You know what I
stop.
mean?
Just stop. First off,
It's like, come
just
on,
stop.
it's totally
You know,
different.
just stop.
That is good. In this, no, they couldn't even throw the ball, bro.
You're
So,
saying that if that Bills game was in Levi's, it would have been different.
it would have been a much. It wouldn't have been a blowout. I tell you that.
Sure.
It would have a much more competitive game. That
Sure.
weather had a huge factor on the game, in my
Sure.
opinion.
And the only person who knew how to play in that weather was Josh Allen. Okay.
Yeah.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is our podcast. If you liked what you have listened to or saw, friendly reminder to like and subscribe to the PTW podcast. We will be back Thursday after the
Yeah.
Niners Rams
The game.
game hopefully Tossie will be in a good mood, and we'll see, and we'll have a great podcast. And even if he's not in a good mood, we'll still talk and we'll go from there. Until next time, my name is Amir from the PCW podcast. This is Tossie the Football Greek, and we will see you all
big
next
game
time.
this week. Take it
care.
easy. See you on Thursday, Niners. Come on.